Folks, happy Friday and welcome to the Freedom from the Press podcast. My name is Jason Robertson and I'm here with my partner in crime,
Todd Peterson. Thanks for joining us, folks. Jason, I got to admit, I love the new song. I'm just not feeling the energy when it transitions over us still. I got to get used to our new song, folks. Let us know in the comments below. Do you like the new song, like the new intro that we had to slap together because of technical difficulties? But man, Jason, I'm looking at the Facebook count. When you title your show Afrikaners, Reparations, Illegals, I think every algorithm in big tech is like, no, we're not sending this out today. So, folks, do us a favor, like and share the program today, please.
Yeah, I got to say, today's going to be a great show. Mask came off on the Democrats. We're going to do a little history. We are going to bring on, instead of Tariff Will Tanner, we're going to bring on African scholar Will Tanner. Nobody knows more about the subjects than Mr. Will Tanner. Hey, we got Fally over on the Rumble too. Fally, welcome first. Where's K-Gun Girl? K-Gun Girl's always the first comment over on the Rumble.
Enjoy your day off, Fally. Yeah, welcome aboard. You get the full hour and a half today.
Yeah, I was going to say, and thank goodness Fally's over on Rumble because we're going to go through just some media stuff, some reaction stuff, and then a Rumble only is going to get spicy because we're going to just rip the Band-Aid off. We're going to do some fact checks on the Afrikaner immigrants. It's going to be spectacular, but we can't talk about that on Facebook or YouTube, so I'll have to shut those feeds down. Get over to the Rumble. Rumble chat's where it's at.
I got to say, Jason, I always look forward to Rumble only. I am feeling extra excited today, if I can use that terminology, for what we are going to break down on Rumble. We are dispelling every myth, every narrative. We're bringing facts to the audience here. It's going to be good. It is going to get spicy and outrageous. But Jason, it's 100% true. I got to tell the story, then we'll dive into the content here. So my kid and I were reading a book yesterday. It was Go Dog Go. I mean, this is like from the 1950s, but she loves Go Dog Go. And when they asked him, do you like my hat? And the guy says, no, I do not like that hat. She's like, Dad, that's mean. And I said, it is not mean. It is factually correct. So it's going to sound mean today, folks. It's going to sound mean, but this is all true. It's not meant to be mean, but we've just got to have honest conversations.
Yeah. Well, and that's why, too, and I apologize, like, in the Rumble only, too. We're going to do a little history. We're going to do a little context. We're going to be a little more educational because we think our audience wants to be kind of educated so that you kind of know, like, some of this backstory. That's why we're bringing Will on. Will knows a ton. He's read a bunch of literature that was written at the time that all these events were happening, not somebody's interpretation 300 years ago. And so he'll be able to give some breakdown on that. Oh my gosh, and we got Dee Dee. Happy Friday, Dee Dee.
Okay, we got to get to this comment, Jason. I haven't even read it, but it's all bold, so it sounds good to me. Early writes, it's called treason and violating the Constitution. They took an oath to uphold the Democrats, need to be removed and arrested. They don't represent the American people they were elected to serve. Earl gets it. Welcome aboard, Earl.
Welcome aboard, Earl. Todd, and do we start this week with breaking news? Promises made, promises kept.
Absolutely, Jason. I got to switch over our final overlay here. But folks, this story coming out today, Kash Patel, again, the Trump administration's theme and motto is promises made and promises kept. Back in time, Kash Patel was talking about the corrupt FBI. You don't need us to go into that history there, but said things need to change, and I'm going to bring that change. And Jason, I know we're not fully 100% on board with Bondi's role, releasing some files, Kash's role, maybe not arresting people fast enough here, but he talked about moving the FBI building, and Jason, that's happening. So let's roll the tape. Let's go back in time a little bit. Here's Kash talking about all of this before he became FBI director, and then we got the more breaking news clip for you following up on that.
Guy's footprint has gotten so freaking big, and the biggest problem the FBI has come out of its intel shops. I'd break that component out of it. I'd shut down the FBI Hoover building on day one and reopening the next day as a museum of the deep state. And I'd take the 7,000 employees that work in that building and send them across America to chase down criminals. Go be cops. You're cops. Go be cops. Go chase down murderers and drug dealers and violent offenders. What do you need 7,000 people there for? Same thing with DOJ. What are all these people doing here? Looking for their next government promotion, looking for their next fancy government title, looking for their parachute out of government. So while you're bringing in the right people, you also have to shrink government.
Now, I got to say, Todd, that was what I voted for when Donald Trump, Kash Patel was talking about this, when he was jumping on it, and a lot of people lost the faith. Because, Kash Patel's talking, hey, we're going to do it day one. Now, reasonable people. And like, I have my copy of Government Gangsters. Every week I bring it out and say, Cash, I want a perp walk. I got the autographed copy, Cash. Give me my perp walk. And I mean, some of that's kind of tongue in cheek because we understand that some of this stuff's going to take time. Todd, how excited are you?
It's happening. We're 4 months in. And yes, logistically, what do you do with 7,000 people? They're not just going to say you're fired today. Good luck. I mean, there's going to be a transition period. What do you do with all the equipment, all the systems that are in place? And so, yes, it's not going to be day one. That is political rhetoric. But Jason, 4 months in, we've got cash with this announcement.
88,000 when we're fully manned, which we're not. In the National Capital Region, in the 50-mile radius around Washington, D.C., there were 11,000 FBI employees. That's like a third of the workforce. A third of the crime doesn't happen here. So we're taking 1,500 of those folks and moving them out. Every state's getting a plus up. And I think when we do things like that, we inspire folks in America to become intel analysts and agents and say, we want to go work at the FBI because we want to go fight violent crime and we want to get sent out into the country to do it. And that's what we're doing. In the next 3, 6, 9 months, we're going to do that hard. And, you know, I didn't know that I was going to do this, but I'm going to announce it on your show anyway. This FBI is leaving the Hoover building because this building is unsafe for our workforce, and we want the workforce.
You just gave up a big nugget there.
But we want the American men and women to know, if you're going to come work at the premier law enforcement agency in the world, we're going to give you a building that's commensurate with that. And that's not this place.
Man, so much to unpack there, but that is a round of applause for Donald Trump's administration.
Yeah, and Kash Patel just announced that this morning. So for those of us who've been keeping the faith, who've been believing in Trump, this administration, who understands the ability to separate rhetoric from like what it actually takes to get things done, I would have liked to see it sooner. I wanted to see the first 100 days. I wanted to see day one, the Hoover building shut down. But if Kash Patel's announcing today, he's going to relocate the workforce out of DC, he's going to shut down the Hoover building, you have my support, Kash. Thank you. Excellent job. Todd, I'm thrilled.
We voted for all this. Yeah, I want to jump in the comments. Facebook, folks, we're just going to say this right now. Love you watching on Facebook. We got a big audience over there. Check us out on Rumble, too. You can find us at rumble.com. The American Tribune is the channel name. We got a great community over there. We got Fally, Didi in the chat. We'll see some others in a little bit here. But Jerry writes over on Facebook, I would love to see that. Well, there you go, Jerry. It is happening. Catherine writes, there you go. Finally getting something done. Paul writes, time to dispose of the dim party. We got Fred over there. This is a Rumble comment. Fred, we got to find you on our Rumble channel, the American Tribune. NWO agenda, abolish the Democrat Party, no longer American. Oh, we got Marge saying, go Cash. We got Michael saying, yes. Thanks for watching. Thanks for commenting, Facebook. Earl's back. Earl, I think your caps lock is stuck right now, but he says it's so ridiculous to see Democrat governors and mayors commit outright treason and still remain in their positions. Earl, I see a theme with you. These are great Rumble community comments. Find us over at rumble.com at the American Tribune. Jason, I got to say this, though. 11,000, 1/3 of the entire FBI workforce within that little tiny beltway radius. Does that not just scream of corruption for you? What are these people doing other than they're dressing up, they're sitting in their office, they're trying to figure out how do we prosecute Catholics in America, prosecute people that looked at the Capitol building one day, prosecute you if you pray at an abortion clinic. There's a lot of things happening in Washington, D.C. that really don't relate to fighting crime, stopping the bad guys. Man, what a great move. The next thing I'd love to see is a wrecking ball demolishing the Hoover building. The optics on that would be incredible.
Oh, my God. We might need to go do an American Tribune live stream of the big ball swinging, hitting the Hoover building. And think of how much awful things that building has seen and participated in from, J. Edgar Hoover, I think, looking back, knowing what we know now, we can say, okay, yeah, this was bad. You know, they warned us. We've been warned. We've been talking about the corruption of the intelligence community and what they've done to American citizens. It's only gotten worse since the Patriot Act. And thank God we're in Washington, D.C. There's never been a non-Democrat mayor in D.C. since its inception. And it's like 95% Democrats. They all work for the government. It breeds corruption. Shut it down. Get the FBI out of there. Get the people on the streets catching the criminals, catching these illegals, deporting people, breaking up the pedo rings. Yes, I'm all for this.
Yeah, maybe not entrapping low IQ Michiganders for some alleged terrorist plot to get Gretchen Whitmer back in the day. That is your FBI working directly against you, making great salaries at your taxpayer expense, by the way. And I would love to see these people quit. This just in, you got relocated to Wyoming. All these corrupt FBI agents are like, I'm not going to do that anymore. I can't fight Trump, so I'm just going to quit. I mean, we could see a reduction in staff too, Jason, which would be great. And the right people would be leaving those positions.
Oh, absolutely. And it's addition by subtraction. Because I got to say, there are men and women on the street of the FBI that are doing God's work, that are out there putting their lives on the line, that are fighting to actually like lock up real criminals. And then it's kind of like our military. Like the average man or woman serving in our military is an amazing person making huge sacrifices for America. The clods running it are the idiots that need to go away. And oh my gosh, Kev might have the best idea. Make the Hoover Building a women's dress factory. True story. And I got to say, Kev's here early this week. Round of applause for Kev. We were giving him grief yesterday. Like, we might see him by 10 o'clock. Kev watches Steve Bannon or something,
I was going to say, too, like the whole idea of the namesake of the building, J. Edgar Hoover, like we're talking like the original Epstein, where he had blackmail files on all these people in Washington, D.C., where I was raised to uphold him as a hero. Like Hoover created the FBI, and look how safe the FBI made America. And it turns out all that was a giant scam. I mean, communist Hoover wearing his dresses. I don't know if he ever wore them to the building, but I would love to take his whole wardrobe and all these politicians' wardrobes, shove them in that building. I'll take either one. We can make it a museum for women's dresses, or we can raise it. But yes, if they raise it, folks, Tat will be there live. You will see us broadcasting live the day it comes down.
Yeah, we could do a meetup. Like, hey, who wants to go to DC? We could probably have Brandon Gill get us some tickets or something. I don't know. We could have some fun with it. Oh my gosh. All right, Todd. I know we were talking pre-show. We weren't going to talk about the Minnesota story, but I'm seeing this video, and I think we just have to play it because Todd and I are both from Minnesota, and we need you guys to understand just the level of insanity that we deal with in Minnesota. So some backdrop. 2 years ago, Democrats got the trifecta: Democrat governor, House, and Senate. And normally Minnesota, one branch would be controlled by the other party, so they couldn't go completely insane. Once they got the trifecta, we went from a huge budget surplus to a huge budget deficit. The money they had set aside was all spent. And now this week, they're trying to hammer out a budget deal. And the sticking point was Democrats are spitting mad that they want to remove health care for illegal immigrants. So me, as a Minnesota citizen who is working, giving 10% of my income, Todd and I are business partners, 10% of what we make goes to the state of Minnesota. And Democrats are just dead set on paying illegal immigrant health care. It's insane.
I'm Senator Elise Mann from Senate District 50. I want to just put an exclamation point on what you just heard, and that was that we had negotiations with a party who
Look how mad
does not care about the well-being of people, with a party who is willing to throw the entire state of Minnesota in disarray, to shut down the government, and in return for not doing that, they wanted to take away health care from 20,000 people. That was their priority.
Just going to pause that for a second. 20,000 people. To be clear, we're talking about illegal immigrants. 20,000 illegal immigrants, not just 20,000 people.
Their goal was to take away health care from people. And under
illegal immigrants.
the guise of fiscal responsibility. There is no fiscal responsibility when you do this. When you take away people's health care, they end up in the emergency department. It costs more money for everyone in the community. It costs hospitals more money. It puts our healthcare system in disarray. It makes our healthcare system weaker. Of course, families fall into poverty. So there is no fiscal, there is no economic argument to be made when we take away people's health care. So
I wish we did a whole episode, Jason, on the cost of socialized healthcare, increased waiting times, more expensive for those of us that actually subsidize the rest of these people on free healthcare. Everything is backwards. I love how miserable they are. Folks, this goes on another minute. Maybe we'll continue this here.
It gets to another point I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, jump in there.
Oh no, keep going.
What they did was purely cruel. It was cruelty dressed as fiscal responsibility. There is no other outcome for when you take away people's health care. And this, I will say this again, was their number one priority.
Yes.
Good.
So what we have is a party who was willing to take away insulin from diabetics, inhalers from people with asthma, cancer treatment from people who just want a few more years with their children, all for political points, all for political gain, to say that we protected essentially homegrown Minnesotans. But all these other people who look different, who speak.
Wait. A politician is trying to protect homegrown Minnesotans with their Minnesota tax dollars. And this is bad. Oh, okay. We'll keep going.
A different language, would have different customs. We do not care about them. We will not pay for them.
A different language. Like they don't even want to learn English. You're in America. I digress.
We will not welcome them, and they can suffer, they can die, and we don't care. That's right. That's what happened today, and that's why we are here, because we are not going to let this go down. We are going to fight this till the very end. Every person who lives in Minnesota is a Minnesota resident. They are part of this economy. They contribute, they work, they raise their children, their kids go to school. They pay $220 million in taxes per year. That's right. And we're
on that point, Jason, I don't believe that figure, but if they pay $220 million in taxes, you know what the state of Minnesota could do? They could eliminate the state income tax of almost 10%, let them keep that money in their pockets, and then go on to the free market and purchase their own healthcare. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here.
Well, yeah, and I was going to say this was the point, because I don't know how you can be a Democrat and can tie all these pretzels in and have it make sense. And this is one of the prominent leaders of the DFL party, the Democrat Farmer Labor Party in Minnesota, spitting mad. Look at how pissed everybody looks. And just, I want to hone in on a few points. One, she makes the claim all these people are here and they're working and they're paying a bunch of $20 million in taxes. So that would mean if you pay 10% Minnesota tax, rough number, you're making $200 million in income. And there's 20,000 people that are on free government funded insurance. These numbers don't make sense. If these people are here and working and generating all this money and tax revenue, they shouldn't be on public assistance and insurance and that kind of thing. Second of all, we have limited resources in America from the tax-paying population in Minnesota, in any of these places. And if we don't be reasonable stewards of that, like, we're not going to have nice things for us, which it is not selfish to want nice things for you, your family, your kids, your neighborhood. That is not selfish. She even declares in here, these people show up, they don't even want to learn American. They don't want to learn English. They want to keep their own language and customs. And we're not talking about like, oh, you want to be Islamic or whatever. Like, they don't even want to understand the basic principles of America and do the things they want to do. It's like when Trump's making English the primary language. Yes, I would like them to eliminate press 1 for Spanish, 2 for whatever. If you're going to come be a permanent resident in this country, it is perfectly reasonable for you to speak the language. But you see all these contradictory ideas, and there is this, you can't take on the entire world's population of poor people. And it is insane. Like, we wish those people well. We hope nobody's starving. We don't want suffering, but it's not our responsibility to prevent that. It's their responsibility to prevent that, which when we get to the African talk, that's going to be a reoccurring theme. Like, we wish them all well, but it's not my job to take care of it. And yes, as Casey Collar says, she refuses to say illegal immigrants.
Yep.
Correct.
They're people. I got to jump to this point too, because this is my go-to now talking to Democrats. We got Thally over on Rumble saying, well, let them get on your health plan and move them into your home. I think Jason and I really hammered this point home last Friday on the show as well. How many illegals has any Minnesota Dem voter ever sponsored? Have they invited them into their home, let them use their guest bedroom, driven them to the doctor's office, put them on their healthcare plan, pay it out of pocket at a medical visit there? How many things have Democrat voters ever done personally, taken on individual responsibility to walk the walk? It's very easy to talk and vote Democrat and say, I'm a better person than you. I care about all people, so I vote Democrat. In their own life, I guarantee not a single one of these frauds giving a speech up here, getting all angry, certainly not the Democrat voters I know in my circle, all these white middle class, just NPCs, they would never let someone into their home like that. I have kids. I have to go to work. But they'll vote Democrat and force it down you and mandate that you pay for all these people. So it's all fraudulent. No, you are not a better person voting Democrat. You are a moron. But then, Jason, again, we're not a fan of socialized healthcare. It seems to me if we're going to go down this path and you've got Dems out there saying socialized healthcare is better, and again, we got to do a show on that and tell you why it is a horrible idea, wouldn't it make sense to put Americans first, Minnesotans first? They have skipped right over, we're going to give you healthcare. I pay $400 a month on my own plan. My wife pays for her own plan that the kids are on here. We're paying $1,000 a month for our insurance. Where is Todd Peterson in this conversation? But they flew right over me and went right to the illegals.
Well, yeah, and last week's show, we broke that down a lot. And even at the end, we were talking about this meme one of my lefty family members shared about, like, what radicalized me, empathy. And I look at that, and they view us like we're the boomer, conservative, Trump people who lack empathy. And it's like, who gives money to the church that actually like does things to help provide food and resources for people? Oh, that's us. How much money have you ever given for anything? Zero. Okay, we give of our time in attending church or going to different volunteer events or doing things. How much have you done? Nothing. Okay, we started a business that is focused on spreading conservative values. Have you done anything like that? No. We sit there and we bitch and we moan and we think we're morally and intellectually superior to you because we think we're nice, because we think the government can force people to do things. Taxation is theft. Giving that money to people here illegally, it should be prosecuted as a RICO charge. It is just insane.
Oh, I'm so fired up. So fired up about this. We weren't even going to play this video today, folks, and we just had to shoehorn it in, maybe because we're in Minnesota and we have to put up with this nonsense every single day. Again, it's not Minnesota nice. It is just Minnesota naive.
Yeah, and it's remarkable, too, because like we deal with this in Minnesota, and like there's a big red contingent in Minnesota. We get Paul Reese, who's a business owner, Split Rock Coffee. Get your splitrockcoffee.com. Use promo code Todd10 for 10% off your order.
Hey, I got my former government school mug today, repping that.
Yeah, there you go. Well, and God, we have such smart viewers too. Shanine, if they have jobs, pay taxes, then they should be considered to get visas to work here. A lot of industries and no handouts. This is not complicated. You want to be in America, learn the language, come here legally, work. We'd love to have you. Skilled immigrants who want to adapt to the American way. Like, this is not controversial. This is not out there. This is just how your company should function.
Jason, if I can merge two ideas from the show today, do you think they would fight for healthcare for Afrikaners?
Yeah, are they going to push for Afrikaners to get birthright citizenship? We gotta go. Do we go reparations next?
Wow, let's do reparations.
All
right, let's play the clips. I have so much to say on reparations. We'll probably have to put a plug in it too and save some other comments for Rumble. So I'm going to try to mediate my words here, but we're going to go back in time. I think this was a year or two ago. Cori Bush, who was an ousted squad member, thank goodness. But of course, St. Louis put in another black Democrat. Like, oh, that'll change things down there. But here's Cori Bush making a case a couple years ago. And then we have a newer one from this week where another squad member, Ayanna Pressley, is making the same nonsensical argument.
Cori Bush and others called for reparations. She introduced a resolution calling for the feds to pay descendants of enslaved Africans and African descent. Russell Kinsaw takes a look at the momentum building to provide compensation for the legacy of slavery.
Decided by a majority.
Missouri Congresswoman Cori Bush announced her reparations resolution along with other members of Congress on the steps of the Capitol.
This is not just a matter of our country's history, but it is a matter for which America must provide reparations if we desire a prosperous future for all.
Bush and others.
All right, so we'll leave that one there. That was a few years ago. Here is the latest push, though, this one coming from Ayanna Presley.
Against black people. We are in a moment of anti-blackness on steroids, and we refuse to be silent. We will not back down in our pursuit of racial justice. The antidote to anti-blackness is to be pro-black, and we will do it unapologetically. The United States government owes us a debt, and we need reparations now.
That was just from this week. In the year of our Lord 2025, they introduced a bill. Do we have that other clip too of the lady that actually introduced the bill? It was like a minute long, talking about reparations. Now, notice when Cori Bush was talking about reparations, she was talking about reparations for people of African descent, so chattel slaves. Now, I noticed too, they never talk about who rounded up those people and sold them to the Europeans. I mean, that would, you'd think that would be relevant. But now you notice, Ayanna Presley, it was an $11 trillion reparations bill. $11 trillion. And these folks are talking too about just anybody of black descent. Now, we're not talking Africans. We aren't talking having to connect it to slavery or like were your ancestors owned by, slaveholders. We were talking about everybody who is black. So if you are a black person from Somalia who was never a victim of slavery, or from Jamaica, or from any other country, you would qualify under their reparations bills. It is the most insane thing ever. And Didi, God, we got a smart crowd too. They only introduce this garbage when they're not in power. It's an important point Didi makes there. Democrats had the presidency, the House, and Senate. If they were serious, they could have done this. She didn't submit that as a recommendation during that.
Yeah, and a little history lesson from our audience. Yes, blacks sold blacks into slavery, says Kev over on Rumble. Valley, black on black, they sold their own people to slave traders. Gee whiz, who knew that slavery was universal at the time of America's founding? Blacks enslaved blacks, captured other blacks. In the New World, you had the Aztecs capturing every single human being they could find to slaughter them on a temple. Even in Europe, you had whites enslaving whites because, as Thomas Sowell always pointed out, you took who was in your area. And so if that was the person near you, you enslaved them. And if you were powerful, you were the slave owner. And if you were not as powerful, you became the slave. And this just in, Jason, the nation to abolish the practice of slavery was
America.
Us. There's
Who knew?
We ended the practice of slavery and gifted you life in the greatest country in the history of the entire world. I owe you nothing.
Well, and it's funny because this thought process is going to tie into the African discussion that we're going to have about these Afrikaner immigrants. And if you notice how this has transformed, this started with, we need, 40 acres and a mule. They never got it. The freed slaves, and nobody in the world they want to hold accountable for slavery. They don't want to cut off foreign aid to the African countries that sold us slaves or sold European slaves. They don't want to hold any other country accountable but America. And then now it's just becoming straight on race, because honestly, as that started gaining traction, they started figuring out like, hey, it's kind of hard to tell who's descended from a slave. And it turns out like sometimes you'll get DNA from a slave owner and a slave holder in the same, yeah. Sunny Hostin from The View, it turned out her ancestors owned slaves, but now it's just going straight on race communism. Now it's, you have disenfranchised black people, and because of that, like, you owe us money. I can't even.
Yeah, this is a comment I touched on in my podcast yesterday and commentary on videos this morning here. Rebecca says in a year they would all be broke and want more. I keep making the point, we need to fight this tooth and nail. This should never happen. This would be the gravest injustice in the history of the country if this actually comes through. But it wouldn't be enough. And again, to kind of foreshadow our conversation on Rumble with Rhodesia Will, with Tariff Will, with South Africa Will, it's never enough. You could pay out $11 trillion tomorrow to the black community in America, and within 1 year, they would demand more. They would demand more money. They would demand more land. They would do anything to achieve those goals too. They're not going to wake up getting their $11 trillion and say, you have atoned for slavery. We are good. We identify as Americans now. We've been made whole. That will not happen, folks. This can't be stressed enough. It doesn't end at reparations. It ends with South Africa. So stay tuned for the Rumble only. If you're watching on Facebook, Jason, our Facebook comments are blowing up today. If you're on Facebook, you're going to want to head over to Rumble, go to the American Tribune, because we're going to deep dive into this even more than we can say on Facebook. But reparations would be the beginning, not the end of their communist, their race Marxist goals.
Well, yeah, and Todd made an extremely good point that just to expand on, if you're going to be a Black person and you get to choose any time or place to be born in, are you telling me you're not going to pick America in the year 2025? Are you going to pick an African nation? We showed a funny video a couple weeks ago about somebody that went over to Africa and like, there's no food, there's no water, like crime is running out of control. Like, I mean, seriously, if you're a Black person born today, and I do the Wayne Dupree podcast Monday through Thursday, he's a Black man, a few years older than me. And I look at the parallels of our lives, and Wayne has taken advantage of the opportunities that America gave him. We both grew up poor. I would argue my situation was worse than his because I had mom that was crazy and an alcoholic. My parents got divorced, where he had a relatively stable family or whatnot. But Wayne worked hard, went in the military, applied himself, owned his own business, and now he has 2 daughters this weekend graduating from college. Wayne has broke the cycle of poverty, any systematic racism in America. He lived life the right way. He did the right things. Now, and his kids are going to live in new life experiences. Kind of like me. I grew up as poor white trash. I worked hard, applied myself, and hopefully I'm able to give my kids a better life to live their American dream. These folks saying that you just need to give the Black communities more money and that is so wrong. And it's interesting. One of the things we'll talk about a little bit on Rumble is what we call what's gained some traction, which is Black fatigue, which is like, when's it going to be enough? And Todd hit the nail on the head. As we dig into Rhodesia and South Africa, you'll find it's never enough. And that's what's sad, until you get everybody just saying, let's knock off this race nonsense. Let's just all be Americans. Let's make America great.
And let's knock off this idea that government is responsible for you financially, that you should be dependent on the government and not dependent on yourself. How much money have we spent on welfare programs, social safety nets since the 1960s? Upwards of 20, 30 trillion dollars. I cannot point to a single urban community that's always been run by Democrats since then that is flourishing with trillions of dollars of government money. I know when I go to national parks, I see signs, don't feed the wildlife, don't feed the squirrels, don't feed the bears. They become dependent on that and they forget how to forage for their own food. Well, what do you think happens to people when you hook them up to the government teat and say, you now rely on us? You don't have to be responsible, work hard, think for yourself. Just rely on us. We'll write you a check. Like, their situation will not get better. People that win the lottery go broke. Professional athletes go broke oftentimes. They're not used to that money. They haven't really earned that money. So if you're a Black American and you land on $5 million, you aren't going to change any behaviors that made you poor in the first place, that made your culture, or rather subculture, a degeneracy. Nothing will change except you now have more money and it will get squandered, wasted. You're still going to be angry because no sum of money will ever heal those hurts that you have been force-fed to believe. I hate this idea so much, Jason.
Well, and I got to touch on too, Kev asked a great question on the Rumble. I think they had reparations in California, but maybe Newsom delayed it. I'm sketchy on it. So just to update, because we gave a little Minnesota stuff. Every now and then we got to work in Minnesota stuff, right?
People don't know how insane Minnesota is. I think it's a good reminder. Like, if you're in Florida, you have no idea how bad it is up here.
Right. So in California, they're actually encountering a similar thing to what Minnesota is, where they're having to cut some things out of the budget. So Gavin Newsom, who is the consummate politician, love him or hate him, I tend to hate him. He's really smooth. He he kept having these committees do reparation studies that would extend beyond his term as governor. So they come back with recommendations, and then he would issue like yes, slavery was bad, even though California never had any slaves, but that's immaterial. And so Gavin Newsom played it like super smooth, and he's delayed it beyond any reasonable time frame that it would be acted on. But in this budget session, they're having to cut a lot of the same things Minnesotans are. Like, they've given away too much money to people on welfare, and like they're having to pull back, and they can't pull back from just Americans that are on welfare, which I believe there's way more people on welfare than should be. But they're starting to pull back from the illegals, because the American citizens who are on welfare that voted for the Democrats are like, wait, you can't cut my stuff. And they're like, well, the illegals, we'll cut them first. So Gavin Newsom's having all sorts of things. Although the most insane one I've seen that just came out in the last like month, don't quote me on that, Washington State passed a housing reparations bill for descendants of slaves, where first-time Black homeowners get $120,000 credit on their first purchase of a home. So you get like a tax credit, or I don't know how they're getting the money, but it was $120,000. So it's like Washington State that never a slave owner lived in, never a slave lived in. What, like, I don't even think we owned like the land that became Washington State when slavery was big. And yeah, they just passed some sort of
Make
reparation.
Putin pay for those reparations. I think we got it from Russia, didn't we? And don't forget, though, Jason, so Washington's doing that. Kamala Harris had her own proposal. Just recapping this one here, she had a proposed $25,000 down payment assistance program for first-time Black homebuyers, even though they couched it in the language of this like historically oppressed. But we all know what she meant there. If you're Black, you can get 25 grand from the federal government. Go buy a home and destroy it here. I want to get to some comments, though, too, because CJ points out nobody knows this if they vote Democrat there. LBJ said, I'm going to hook all these people up on welfare and make them reliant on the state. And he used much stronger language when describing how he would get the Black community voting Democrat for the next however many generations here. He despised them. He saw them as a massive voting bloc and easily controlled if you just got them hooked on government money, i.e. taxpayer dollars, i.e. what you work for and then get stolen from you. And then there was one more I wanted to get here. We had Cindy in the comments here. I think Cindy's dropping some facts. This reads to me like AI here. But Cindy wants us to know that undocumented immigrants paid almost $97 billion in taxes in 2022. It went to federal, state, and local places here. So they paid on average $9,000 basically per person. Okay. That is not an argument to hook them up on free healthcare. I think Cindy was going back to our previous clip here. I don't want that $100 billion. I would rather they leave. And Jason, the thing that Cindy leaves out on that comment here, again, Cindy, thanks for at least not yelling at us. You tried to offer some different point of view. How much do we pay them? So I don't care what number they pay in federal, state, local taxes. I also care about the other number, which is how much assistance do they get? Because Jason, where we live in Minnesota, I can go up to St. Cloud. I can see every Somali mom driving a minivan that I know they didn't pay for. I can see them all living in these apartment buildings that I know they're not paying for. How much money are we giving back to them? It's definitely not net positive in terms of, yeah, we're benefiting from illegal presence here. That aside, I don't even care. If we made money off the illegals, I still don't want them here.
Right. Yeah, it's funny because even this math, I love the math. Like, one, how do you know how much an undocumented immigrant is paying in taxes?
That defeat the purpose?
Well, like if you're saying like anybody who gives me an undocumented immigrant stat, I always kind of chuckle, like, you don't know because they're not documented.
It's under the table. They're not recording this.
Right. Yeah. They're not recording it. They're not paying it.
Uh-oh.
Todd just kicked me.
I didn't do it.
Todd just kicked me off the stage. Oh my God.
I didn't touch anything.
Oh, that's funny. But anyways, like, how do you know what you did or didn't, or what was paid or wasn't paid, or that kind of thing? But now, Todd, do I need to break out the tinfoil hat?
Jason, honestly, I don't even think it's tinfoil anymore. Everything we say is just coming down the pike. But put it on.
I'm going to go for it, though. I'm going to go for it because now we're going to shift because people are making the argument every undocumented alien is amazing and they are more American than Americans. And they are going to, like, they're the heart and soul of the country. You know, look at how much they're paying in taxes and they're harvesting the crops and all these things. White replacement theory, not true. Like, how dare Tucker Carlson say that or people report on that? So, Todd, this week, 50, only 50 white Judeo-Christians who speak English, Afrikaners. Afrikaner are the name for the white people from South Africa. They show up in America, and I am certain that everybody is going to wrap their arms around them like they love every immigrant. And now here you got immigrants that are white. Yeah. They're immigrants that speak English. They're immigrants that, you know, generally follow our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, like all sorts of fun things. Right. But Todd, how did they react?
You know, you would expect the reaction, like you said, Jason. Here are people fleeing persecution. Many of their family members, friends, neighbors getting slaughtered at the behest of the black majority democracy down in South Africa. That was not the reception that these folks received, though. You had clips of these people, these NGO church organizations that have resettled tens of millions of illegals in this country saying, no, it goes against our morals to support these people. They shouldn't be here. No, Donald Trump said he was closing the border, but he let 50 people in that would have been killed otherwise by their government and the thugs that they allow to run amok over there. Yeah, it was quite astounding. You realize maybe it's not about immigration. If you're a Democrat and you are not championing the arrival of these people to this country, it kind of tells me you never really cared about immigrants. You cared about a political message. You cared about the power you would receive from them when they got naturalized and would vote for you. You cared more about destroying this country and demoralizing the people in it than you do about 50 people. 50 people to pay for doesn't even register on the federal government's budget. But yes, let's make a big hullabaloo about this.
Should we play some of the media reactions, Todd?
Oh, we have MSNBC because of course we do. Oh, we got to switch our screen really fast here.
Who created the most diabolical system of white supremacy in human history, apartheid.
Also, how do you mispronounce supremacy? Like, what is happening? I just couldn't get over that.
They're not directly responsible for it, but it was a system that actually moved black people off of the arable land. So they inherited the land that the black people had to give up. It was called forced removal. It was something called a Bantustan policy where they moved.
Jason, I just want us to put a pin in that idea of forced removal, by the way. So forced removal so far is bad. Just hang on to that thought.
Black people out of the cities and farmlands into these remote areas with non-arable land. I mean, it was just one of the most worst processes ever. But what has happened in this strange, bizarre world we're living in is that the Afrikaners have become the darling of these right-wing, white supremacist movements around the world. That it's like the lost cause for them. It's like the old Confederacy. They're held up as these white Christians who are being dispossessed of their land. It's like this is a modern replacement theory in a country where, by the way, white people make up 7% of the population and own 78% of the farmland. So it's actually, there's no injustice here.
I'm just laughing because we have Rhodesia Will in the studio, and I'm just waiting for Rhodesia Will's face as he's like, I just so want to correct like 12 different points that they make. So the media like frames it up that, hey, like what happened in South Africa, the whites were awful and their descendants are awful. Like everything, and this ties back to what Todd was saying, everything that the whites have done in South Africa to atone for any sins are awful, but it's never enough. Now they've passed a law. We've written about it on some of our properties that says you can appropriate their land to give to black farmers instead of white farmers. So you go up to a white farmer who's had this farm for generations, give it to a black farmer in name of equity or equality. And that's okay. When my farmer did it, it wasn't okay. Now it's okay, which I think that was the point you were getting to, wasn't it, Todd?
Absolutely. Yeah, I want to make one more comment from Kev here. Let's bring Will on for Facebook, Jason. Introduce him to our Facebook crowd. And then we've got to encourage everyone on Facebook, once you see Rhodesia Will in his camo hat, I know you're going to be convinced to find us over on Rumble at the American Tribune. But Kev says this guy is a monster. He absolutely is. He is possessed by demons. This is my message for white Democrats, though. You think you are helping out here? They don't see you that way. At the end of the day, you are a white person and you are just as liable to have your land, property, wealth confiscated. They don't ask you who you voted for before they steal from you and then harm your family members or an inner circle. They don't care. So this guy thinks he's doing the world a service here, and you could not be more deluded in voting for your own demise. I don't know. Should we bring on?
I think we need to bring on Mr. Rhodesia Will. Is that what we're calling him?
There he is.
Fellas.
Rhodesia Will
Eric
Tanner.
Will.
Now,
Rhodesia.
some people might be confused because on a previous episode, we had Tariff Will on. And now this is Tariff Will's cousin, Rhodesia Will.
Yeah, I got the Rhodesian Bush camo hat as a wedding present. Wife wasn't super happy that that wasn't a gift for the both of us, but you know.
Based wife alert.
Yeah. And I got to say, wrong thing, fan. Will is a real well-read guy. That is an understatement. Will is a young man. It'll be funny because he's one of our business partners. And I'll be up at like 5 a.m. doing stuff. And Will get up and he's like, oh, sorry, I slept in. I was up late. I'm like, oh, what were you doing? Like thinking he was partying or clubbing or at a Metallica concert. And he's like, oh, there was this great manuscript I was reading from 1822 that was written by the people that discovered the Aztecs. And I just got all wrapped up in it. And I'm like, shouldn't you be out like doing crazy things or clubbing? And Will.
Yeah, it's all true.
All right. I got to comment on this, Jason. A shameless plug. I'm sorry, Will, to cut you off. Before you get all erudite on us, I just have to go really low IQ for a second. Kev noticed that we all have different hats. If our audience likes my hat or Jason's hat, they can go to the AmericanTribuneStore.com. We don't make a lot of money on it, but it's fun to rep the tat stuff. I got my 4-year-old a pink American Tribune hat for her T-ball. So she's now repping the American Tribune.
Giddy up. Yeah, and I gotta say, Will's hat was like custom ordered or something for. Yeah, because we went to Will's wedding. That was a hell of a wedding, Will. How's it feel to be married for a week?
Oh, it's it feels about the same as beforehand, honestly. But I'm glad I'm married.
I think every guy is glad that it's done. I don't have to plan or think about it and anticipate it, and just want this to be done.
Oh, spectacular. Well. Where do we go to next, Todd? Talking about South African. We showed how. Do you think it's safe to show the liberal lady response, or do we go Rumble only for that?
I think we should have some fun with Will today. We don't want to waste his time over on Facebook. We want to go into the weeds on Rumble. And so if you're watching on Facebook, head over to rumble.com, or you can get the app on your phone. It's just like YouTube. Get a little green play button there. And then search out the American Tribune. We are still streaming live, so you can find it there under the live streams. Again, search out the channel. It'll be the first video that pops up. But the American Tribune over on Rumble. Facebook comments were great today. Thanks, everybody, for watching here. We hate to kick you off, but the things we're about to dive into, the Facebook overlords would not appreciate it at all.
Yeah, and it's funny. We joke about Facebook and censorship on some of these platforms. And to give a real under the hood for some of the folks and understand why we love Rumble. So the other day, what day was it? Like Wednesday, all of a sudden we're all sitting there, we're doing some work. We run a digital marketing company. We create content. All of a sudden we started getting notifications. They were demonetizing several of our pages. So the way we make a living on some of these platforms, they just shut it off. No violations, no anything. I had to log on to support. Spend like hours. Poor Will lost more hair than he already was losing. Because it's like, man, they shut down our monetization. And then this morning I woke up to a couple emails and they all get reactivated. And like, we aren't doing anything wrong. We're very careful about the content we share on different platforms, Facebook, YouTube in particular. But that's why we do Rumble. Rumble never once shuts down our monetization, never once says you're talking about something you shouldn't talk about, you're doing something we shouldn't do. So that's why it's important we're building a community over there. Plus, there's a lot of fun people. We got K-Gun Girl, Kev, Paul Reese usually over there, Dee Fally, Wrong Thing Fan. I even got my neighbor over there. I don't think Michaela's on today, but so we're going to log off Facebook, YouTube. We appreciate you watching. We appreciate all the comments. Go to rumble.com. Search for the American Tribune. We're going to be live over there for another half hour, 45 minutes. But we got to deep dive into some of this racist nonsense. So with that, we'll see everybody on the other side.